and your power. It is very hard in the beginning, though, I will admit, to just go in and make 1,000 demands.
Well, and I do want to bring up, especially when it comes to boundaries that you set in your life, um, that our identities, I would say, are a major part of how you step into the room. So I don't remember exactly. I think it was the Hollywood Roundtable. I love watching the Hollywood Roundtables
Mm-hmm.
that happen. But Ellen Pompeo had really like spoken up about, being a white woman and like saying that, basically calling out the different production companies for saying they were diverse, but really meaning that they'll try to be diverse when it comes to cast, but it wasn't trickling down into the writers or the showrunners or those in the staff positions. And, I feel that I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't ask you, Rasheed, like, especially as a queer black man, how is it when you like do you feel that the
Oh,
advice
it's
that you
show
now
to
have?
show, right? I mean,
Yes.
there are some shows I walk in and um they're doing what they should be doing. There's a lot of diversity. You feel included, you feel heard. And there have been shows I've been on where I felt like, oh, I'm here for window dressing. You don't stick around very long. You kind of finish your season and you go. There have been shows. I mean, there have been shows where I've been highly insulted in the room and have kind of crossed swords with other writers based on their assumptions. Um, it is a lot of people coming from places. I mean, everybody's coming from their own background, their own history, and a lot of people have blind spots that they don't even know about. And they'll say something, and I just sort of have to sit up and go, "I'm sorry, could you repeat that?" we have those conversations. But it's really hit or miss. I mean, I must say, I mean, this is of course a liberal city and a liberal industry. That does not mean it's without its prejudices and its blind spots. And it's it's startling sort of when it comes up, but I've, for better or worse, I've had a whole lifetime of experience confronting it and dealing with it. And so I just do.
Well, and like especially with um I should say especially someone again talking about boundaries of people who try to take your energy. One of my listener or one of the listeners of the podcast said that I was pronouncing a word wrong. So for them, it's especially. Uh Again, I'm glad that they listen. But moving along, I think that what you're really bringing to bear, and this goes into my government means to kill me, is like just the way shows are really starting to transform, in my opinion. Like I'm thinking of a show like Pose, which in my opinion is probably my favorite LGBTQ TV show
It's
in the
great.
last 10
Stephen will
years.
be thrilled to hear that. That is wonderful.
Oh, really? Oh, good. Wait, Steven is
Stephen
the
Canal, who co-created that show, I mean, really came up with the idea for that show, and then Ryan Murphy heard the idea from Stephen, and they joined together to bring it to television.
yeah. Well, I thought
But I
it
would think of him as the creator.
yeah, it was executed wonderfully. And I actually might start rewatching because I'm rewatching Queer as Folk from 2000 right now on the podcast.
I
So I might,
saw that.
yes.
I mean that was a touchdown for me. I mean, I grew up loving that show, and not. It's interesting. I haven't rewatched it in so long. I mean, I'd be curious to see how much of it holds up, and some of the what we'll call the politics of the moment that we just sort of accept it because you're like, well, I've got a gay show. Let me just be happy with it. I'd be really curious to see how that's aged.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think so far we're only a few episodes in, or I've recorded a few episodes, I should say. And you can feel the pulse. I feel so much more of the awakening journey. Like it definitely has that I'm coming out
Mhm.
very um some shock value moments, but again, like you said, this is a touchstone for so many of us growing up, and it was the first uh cable show that came out or subscription show that came out on Showtime that really featured all of these narratives. So I think it is, interesting though when it comes to like your, being so you are a co-creator, right, of Bel-Air?
Yes.
Okay. So I remember there's the storyline with Ashley, right?
Yeah.
Ashley is 12 years old. Or when at the moment when, she's interested in girls, she's 12 years old. That it's interesting now and exciting. I feel what's so different than Queer as Folk is now we're in the moment of integrating queer characters into mainstream shows.
Yeah.
Um, that even like in the Real Housewives franchises, which I love the Real Housewives, there's like openly bisexual or lesbian women. And, it's not like their show is just about lesbian women in Hollywood, which
But
there
also, I
could be
mean,
that
that
show.
that
Yeah.
was, I mean, doing that on Bel Air, it took a lot of intentionality, and it was even a struggle. Like we had to very upfront say this is what we wanted to do, that this was going to be a character beginning to question her sexuality and then coming to, sort of land on the idea that maybe she was lesbian or bi, and like what we, even in casting, we had to tell parents because the actress was going to be underage. This is what we're doing with this storyline. We are interested in someone dealing with their sexual identity even before they are sexually active, which is a piece of the story I thought is often missed. Like normally people, the way the stories are told is no one sort of comes into their sexual identity until they fall in love and want to sort of act on it. But a lot of us, before we understood what sex really was, we're already grappling with our sexual identity. We were grappling with attraction, even if we didn't know what grown-ups did behind locked doors. And that's the story we want to tell. So we're like, there's never going to be an explicit scene with this child, but we want to have this conversation. And some families, some actresses took themselves out of the running when they heard that. Said, we don't believe in that. We won't be, no, 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 not our child, right? I was very glad we got Akira in the role who, again, understood fully what we wanted to do. Now, so I'm very proud of that storyline, it's still running. What I wanted to do, which was probably too radical for the franchise and the outlet, was I wanted to, over the course of 5 or 6 seasons, tell a trans story. I wanted this character to go from questioning to lesbian to then questioning their gender identity and then beginning that transition. If you watch the original series, towards the end they had a son. They got another kid named like Nick. I wanted the character to transition into Nick by the end. That is not on the table. And that's the thing. I mean, like, I think sometimes people look at Hollywood and they think those of us who are queer have like a free hand and we're just doing we're just going around with a magic wand making everything just as queer as we want. No, 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 no. There are still a lot of conversations about how much the audience will accept, how much of how much the network and the studios are comfortable with. And in a way that I will grant as somewhat legitimate, there becomes the question of the balance of the show. There are some storylines which are really great and interesting, but if you add them to the show, it will throw off the entire weight of the enterprise. Like the audience is suddenly going to be much more interested or divided or whatever. Like this will consume the rest of the canvas. I still wish we'd done it, but
Yeah.
I have a lot of battles, and I just remind people I probably lose more than I win. And I have a good batting average, but it's like baseball for all the baseball fans who are listening. If you can successfully, get on base at bat, get on base more than a third of the time, you're going to go to the Hall of Fame. So I think of it that way.